I'm here with actor Michael Jayston, who is in the film Dominique, among many other films he's been in, and TV shows. He's been in Doctor Who. He's been in a lot of other great things. You've been in Zulu Dawn, which is another favorite of ours around here as well. And you're still doing a lot more work as well. And
yeah, in fact, I'm going to LA on Wednesday for a Doctor Who conference.
Oh, excellent. So kind of get us started. Like, how did you get into acting? How did you get started?
Oh, I was with an amateur group to begin with because the professional company at that time in Nottingham was so marvellous. I didn't think I stood a chance, and then I took an exam. I went to level 8 and passed that, and the professor taking it said audition for Guildhall in September and you might get in, and I managed to get a scholarship, so I was lucky.
Oh, that's awesome. What was your first TV show or movie that you were in?
Well, I was in theatre for quite a long time, and then I got into a thing called the Power Game, which was one of the most successful. It's not the same as the States, but we used to play to 22 million people now. I mean, not now, 22 million people. We've got so many channels now that 22 million was what we were playing to every week. It was called the Playmakers, and then it was the Power Game. And I was working at the Royal Shakespeare Company at the same time, but because we were in repertory, they let me have time off to rehearse to do the Power Game. It was amazing. And in those days, of course, we rehearsed for a fortnight. In television now, you just go on and do it, and you've got to rehearse with your friends privately. But you never get any rehearsal now on television much.
And it looks
unless
like
you happen to be an American.
Yeah, no, very true. And it looks like after the Power Game, that's when it just started getting going. I mean, you did Macbeth the series right after that, right?
Yes, that was on television, but that was really for Open University. It was a channel that it was on in the afternoons, and it got quite well. I don't take much notice of Twitter, but I looked it up the other day, and somebody said that it was the best Shakespeare they'd ever seen, and I was better than Orson Welles. Then I looked a bit further down, and somebody else said it was the worst Shakespeare they'd ever seen in their lives. It was somewhere in the middle.
Everyone's a critic.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Go on.
So you're doing, you're doing all these projects too. You're doing everything from thriller. You're doing the Jane Eyre project as well. You're doing all these, classic films, and then you start doing stuff like Craze, and then Dominique. And with Dominique, did you hear about the project beforehand, or?
Well, yeah, but it was producing it, and it wasn't a very big part, as you know. But going back to Craze, I shouldn't have done some of these films, but it was with Jack Palance, and I got on with him so well. And before I met him, somebody said we had to do the shot out of sequence, and he had to attack me with an axe. And they said, Jack's rehearsing, and I went in, and he was about 54 at the time and very fit, and he was whirling around with that snarl on his face, and I thought, but he was the most professional guy I've ever worked with, and absolutely charming, because he'd been a boxer in his youth, and he'd fought Joe Baxi, who demolished a lot of our professionals, and I said, did you go the distance with him? And Jack Palance said, no, he went the distance with me.
I could see him saying
but
that.
As far as Dominique goes, it was just an offer, and it wasn't a very big part, but Cliff Robertson was so lovely on that. He sent a letter afterwards to every single member of the cast saying how much he enjoyed himself, which was unusual.
That's different. Yeah, and I heard we got a chance to talk to the assistant director, and he had mentioned Cliff, it seemed, was worried about security for himself on the show, not necessarily for the film itself or people around it, but there was some weird thing happening in Hollywood where he had his house, I guess, was way out in the boonies, you call it, and it was like during the set, I guess Cliff was absolutely, was perfect and, well trained and everything, but outside of that, he was very worried about the security or something at the time. Did you hear any rumblings about that?
No, I'd heard he was in trouble with somebody in the States, but I never found out what it was about. But of course, at that time, the IRA were blowing up people in Britain, so he might have been worried about that as well. But the British just took it in its head, and it's like we didn't hate the Irish as a race. We just hated the murderers who were going around with the IRA.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the Irish as a nation, because I was working with a lot of Irish people at the time. But going back to Cliff Robertson, I think he had trouble with his studio, and somebody had threatened him out there about something or other. But I never got to the bottom of it.
I think you're right. Yeah, it was some studio person there like threatened to kill him or something like that over a part or something. It was just bizarre. But yeah, that's.
I know.
Yeah.
But he was a charming man to work with.
Oh yeah, it was great. I mean, growing up, I'm kind of discovering his filmography in reverse, but going through but I finally got to see 3 Days of the Condor, and then am seeing all of his filmography since then as well. And it's great because you see all these other great actors, and you also worked with Judy Geeson on the set as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
I only saw her in Chicago last year. I mean, we're getting old now. I mean, she was lovely on. I liked her a lot. I saying people are lovely, but most actors, I've met very few that I've disliked.
So, did you get a chance to see the film when it premiered?
Sorry?
Did you get a chance to see Dominique when it premiered?
Did I what?
I'm sorry, did you get a chance to see the premiere of Dominique when it came out, when the film was released?
No, I didn't. I saw a rough cut of it beforehand. I couldn't go to the premiere or something.
Oh, okay.
No. But you see, it didn't get terribly good notices, actually.
That's what it's.
So one or two really had a go at it. I don't know why.
Yeah, it seemed like something happened with the distribution at the time, where it didn't really get as much play as it should have had. But so okay, so go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
No, I mean Gene Simmons, of course. I'd worked with Olivier about a year before, and of course she played Ophelia when she was only 19 in his Hamlet, and we had a great long chat about because she adored him, as I did. So we got on very well together. But as I said, I was only in it a week, as was Ron Moody. I mean, it had a hell of a cast to it. Simon Ward, of course, who later on was in Zulu Dawn.
Yeah, that's right.
And Burt Lancaster. Oh boy, here's another great actor.
Well,
we all queued up. He had a scene where he had to come on a horse, and we'd met him beforehand, and everybody went to the set to see him. It was like watching a great actor make an entrance on his horse, and he pulled up on his marks, and the director said, just let's have another one for safety, for Lloyd's or whatever it is. And he said, okay, come absolutely dead on his mark from about 60, 70 yards away. And it was marvellous watching this great guy come along on the horse, and we all clapped him after they said cut. And there again, he was another charming man.
Did you right after that, you were in the Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, and I know that's
right.
Yeah, that's got a lot of fans, especially since people have seen the remake and now they're going back to see the original with Alec Guinness. So how was that? Because you play a big part in that.
I was in South Africa when my agent. It was quite difficult to get phone calls from the UK to South Africa. Then my agent got through and said, they want you to be in Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. And my agent much preferred musicals. And he said, have you read it? And I said, yes. I said, I'll do it. He said, listen, you haven't got the script yet. I said, I'll do it. I said, who else is in it? And he said, Alec Guinness. I said, I'll do it twice over.
Yeah.
And that was amazing working with Guinness, because he's a very, very quiet man, and but incredibly generous to people, not just money-wise, but taking people out for meals all the time. And he did have some money coming in from Star Wars. Was it Star Wars?
It was Star Wars. It was Star Wars right before.
That's
yep.
right. And he was there again. He was great to work with great actors like him and Burt Lancaster. You don't particularly have to act with them because they're so good. All you do is react to what they're saying because you know you're in safe hands with people like that. It's marvelous to get somebody of that talent. I mean, I worked with Helen Mirren on a thriller about when she wasn't really famous then, when she was about 27, and it's brilliant. She was quite brilliant I didn't have to do much at all. I just reacted to her talent.
Oh, absolutely. And now doing these projects. Did you realize at the time when you went on to do Doctor Who, kind of the fan response to that and how it would be?
No, it's amazing. I was only saying to a friend of mine yesterday that when you think of Doctor Who, which started in 1963, I did it about 30 years ago, and I would never have dreamt that I would still be going to conventions, not just in America, but all over England and places like that. I would never have thought it. And it's the same as Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. That is still in people's minds. And I know John Le Carre. Well, his real name is David Cornwall. I know him quite well because I do all his audio books, apart from the last one, on cassettes. I've done all his books, and he always sends me his
first edition?
His books signed by him to me with a lot of stuff that's totally over the top. But it's lovely to get first editions signed by the author.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And then going through, so how's it working, doing all this work? How's it changed for you over the years when you're doing work now that's, that'll come out in 2019 and 2020. You started back in...
How it turned out?
Yeah, how's it come out since from the 60s? And just how has it been for you?
I don't know. I mean, in some ways, I wish I'd have done a bit more comedy because I know I can do comedy. I've done a lot of comedy on stage. But the only comedy... I don't know whether you've ever seen A Bit of a Do. It's a sort of Northern English, and it might not have been shown in the States. It was with an English actor called David Jayston, and it was a very fine cast. But I'd like to have done a bit more comedy because I can do it, and comedy is much more difficult to do than Hamlet or serious stuff. Because if you go on a stage or on a television and you don't get any laughs, you might as well not be there, whereas in a tragedy you can be as boring as hell and you don't know, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Well, yeah, hopefully you get to do a few comedies coming up soon. Yeah. But do you have anything else on Dominique or working with Michael Anderson or any other Dominique-related anecdotes?
Well, Michael Anderson, when you think of his career... He did Round the World in 80 Days, didn't he?
Yes, he did, yep.
And he had quite a successful career, and he was quite old. I think he lived to be about 92 or something.
Yeah, he just passed away last year. He was 98.
98?
Yep.
Oh, my God. He was an absolute charmer. He was one of those kind of British people that not many of them exist anymore. Old school, well-educated. I think he'd been in the war. But he was terribly sort of well-spoken, he spoke like that, hello, and he didn't lose his temper at all. He just carried on with it, and one or two things went wrong, but it didn't worry him whatsoever. He just went on, and there again was brilliant to work with.
Absolutely.